Hello, and thank you for contacting Wave Support. I see you're struggling a little bit with your keratoconus patient here, and it looks like you're pretty close on your designs. And if we just talk about these for a moment, I do have both designs here. Thanks for sending all the information. If we look here at the right eye, you have a fairly centralized cone. And I was looking at your designs. These actually look very nice. I think going a little larger was helpful. And the one thing you may consider doing, I think you could probably get away with a larger lens because this is pretty centrally located, this cone. One of the tools that a lot of the docs like to use, and I found this successful. Now keep in mind, as you know, the rules go kind of out the window with these keratoconus patients. But one of the tools that's very useful is this little aspheric optical zone design here. So if you look, this is the topography of the cornea as Wave views it, and this is the back surface of the lens. So if you remember, you mentioned that sometimes that lens has a little steeper look to it. And if that would make sense because you have an optical zone here that's set at about, I think your optical zone in your design was about 5 or so. So if you take 5, that gives you a little area out here where you're going to have a little bit of more likely to have touch here with a little more standoff in this area. So I already moved this down to a little bit about 4.5. A lot of times when you're fitting these designs, if you can, ideally you could bisect that cone a little bit, but that would make a pretty small central zone, although you could use that. I just tried mocking this lens up using about a half, I think you were at about 5, I went down to about 4.5 on this design, and we have a pretty close representation. Now, not a lot of the docs like to use this aspheric optical zone tool, and if you've never used it, I'll show you what it does. If you click on just a little bit there and then redesign the lens, what you're going to see is all of a sudden this lens, this back surface of the lens is going to look exactly like the front surface of the cornea. And you'll see you can't get a whole lot closer to that in representation. So doing that, maybe even going to a little larger, you could probably get away with that if you go up to 10.0. Again, now if this patient feels like they're fairly comfortable in the lenses, I don't know if I would mess too much more with the fitting. As you know, it's hard enough to get these lenses comfortable on these keratoconus patients. When it comes to power, what you may have going on here, and this has happened to me in the past, most of these keratoconus patients are wearing spherical lenses. Now I've gone to a freeform design, which is a nice idea, but as you mentioned in your clinical request that you weren't sure on this refraction. So what may be happening in this case, you've got imperfect refraction due to the weird cornea. You've got a very very exact freeform back surface of the lens. And if you remember what this will do, freeform is going to try to put a nice, basically freeform toric lens on the curve on the back side of the lens, and then it's going to try to incorporate this data into that lens to create the perfect lens for this irregular cornea. Well, if this is not accurate due to a funny cornea, you're going to end up with a weird power throughout that lens. And so what I found sometimes, if I'm not sure on this thing, I've just taken this right out of the equation. I'll just make this all plano, still design it in freeform, get a nice design, and then I'll use the data that I do know. I'll go down here to this tool. If you haven't used it yet, it's a great little tool, the trial lens data, and then I'll put into here what the patient's currently wearing or what I know from a known lens. If I have one in the office, I can put a spherical lens on the eye and over refract, but in this case it looks like you have previous parameters. Just enter their previous parameters here and then hit continue, and that's going to add the power into it. So now what you have is you've got the powers that were in the old contact lens, but with a free-form design on the back surface of that lens to try to match that cornea. And sometimes that'll take out this erroneous data that we get from these toric powers. What's probably happened with some of the fluctuating vision, you might have more of a front toric lens created by the free-form, trying to incorporate this. And when you get that, you got a lens, if you blink, it's going to rotate around and give you some weird power effects. So I would almost say go for the free-form back surface, but use the tool to add the power in. And that I think will help get you where you need to be on that lens. The left eye, it looks like you didn't have as much of a frustration with the power. That could also be because this cone is a little bit more decentered. It's not right down the visual axis. But again, what I did in this case, I showed an example. This is your design here, and again, it looks like a really nice design. But what I did is I switched over to, I kept it in axial and I just added that little aspheric component. You'll see now you got a back surface that really closely matches that cornea. That can be helpful now. As great as this looks, again, the rules go out the window. They don't always work the way I anticipate them. So, you know, you may want to experiment a little bit there. But if the fit is reasonably good and the comfort's good, you may want to just, if you want to go a little bit larger, you can probably get away with that since these lenses look like they're fitting pretty nicely centrally, and then just incorporate the over-refraction. I wish you well with these cases. These can be very challenging, as you know, very frustrating sometimes, but it looks like you're very close to being successful in this case. So I wish you well with this challenging case, and thank you for contacting Wave Support. Have a great day.